Careful, Grandma. You can't scrub war crimes off steel. She didn't answer. She just bent over the bomb bay. Her coveralls slipped. A scar showed. A camera blinked. Then the base locked down. Secure asset code. Level 7 detected. Sirens followed. Doors slammed shut. And someone whispered, "That scar just triggered an entire war protocol. Screens lit up with a name the military had buried 16 years ago. No rank, no ID, just a woman and a scar the system never forgot." Why did the base treat her like a weapon? What happened the day her name was erased? You're watching Veteran Biker. Tell us where you're watching from and drop a comment below. Subscribe for more stories that were never meant to surface. The morning haze clung low over Grayson Air Base, thick with exhaust and the scent of scorched alloy. The sun was barely up, casting a bruised grey light across the tarmac where concrete met steel and steel met silence. Somewhere past Hangar 4, an old B-92 tactical bomber loomed like a fossil from a war no one talked about anymore. Its underbelly, charred, dusty, forgotten, awaited maintenance no one volunteered for. Talia Reyes showed up early. She always did. No one greeted her. No one ever did. Her boots echoed against the grated steel walkway as she approached the aircraft with a canvas utility bag slung over one shoulder. Her coveralls were grey, standard issue, oil-stained and faded, but clean. Her gait was steady, unhurried. 43 years old, medium build, hair cropped close under a plain black cap. No insignia, no rank, just support crew. By the time she climbed the ladder and entered the maintenance platform beneath the aircraft, the hangar had begun to stir. 3 young pilots from Delta Squadron loitered by the transport jeep, trading jokes with paper coffee cups in hand. She didn't look their way, but they looked at her. "Careful, Grandma." One of them smirked, loud enough to carry, "You can't scrub war crimes off steel." The others laughed, not at the joke, but at the fact that it landed. Talia kept moving. She reached into her bag, retrieved a thick cloth and a spray bottle of rust solvent. Her movements were mechanical, practiced, no response, no acknowledgement. She's been scrubbing that bomb bay for what, 20 years? Another pilot said. What's she hoping to wipe off? Her conscience, the third added. She's got that burn patch on her neck, right? Bet she crashed something. Maybe she's the reason half this fleet went into retirement. Laughter again, this time crueler. Talia knelt under the fuselage. The metal was rough, oxidized. She sprayed the edge of the release bay, waited a beat, then began to scrub, long, even strokes. Her shoulders moved slowly and sure, her breath steady. Then, as she leaned farther in, her coveralls, worn from time and hundreds of wash cycles, slipped at the back. And for just a moment, the skin beneath was visible. A scar, jagged, wide, twisting from just below the shoulder blades to the base of her spine, the color of scorched bark. Someone behind her inhaled. "What the hell is that?" one of the pilots whispered. A silence fell like glass shattering on tile. Above her, a security camera, long thought defunct, red light long faded, flickered once, then again, then it turned. A click sounded in the rafters, and everything changed. Secure asset code, level 7 detected. The warning flashed across every maintenance terminal in Hangar 4, in red, in bold, in a tone no one had heard before. The blast doors began to shut. Sirens screamed through the facility. "Whoa, whoa, what is that?" one of the pilots yelled. "Hey, I didn't do anything!" The second shouted. Security personnel emerged from the shadows like smoke, rifles half raised, unsure. And Talia slowly stood. She zipped her coveralls back up without haste, turned, faced them all. Not a flinch, not a word. One of the MPs hesitated. "Ma'am, can you please step away from the aircraft?" She said nothing. Instead, a small terminal at the far end of the hangar flickered to life, a screen no one had touched in years. Authorization required. Override channel inactive for 16 years. The room held its breath. At the central command hub, 5 kilometers away, an alert tore through the digital silence. In a windowless briefing room, General Halvorson stared at the screen. The file identifier made his throat tighten. R22. Silent override. Reyes, Talia. He stood so fast his coffee spilled across a stack of threat reports. Reyes is dead, he muttered. Sir? His aide asked. The general turned pale. No, he said quietly. No, she's not. Back in the hangar, Talia walked toward the terminal, slowly, like she knew every step by heart. Outside, the alarms continued, and inside, a scar the system had tried to erase was suddenly the most dangerous thing on base. She reached the terminal. The screen read, Voice confirmation optional. Scar pattern matched. Initiate secure channel reboot. Her hand hovered over the keypad. Behind her, no one spoke, because no one knew what would happen next. But the system did, because war memory doesn't die, it just waits. The lights in Hangar 4 shifted from harsh white to pulsing red, casting every surface in a war zone hue. The atmosphere was no longer routine maintenance. It had the static tension of something ancient waking up. Inside the sealed chamber, the silence screamed louder than the sirens. Talia Reyes stood before the console, motionless. Her hand hovered over the keypad, and for a breathless instant she did nothing. Then, without looking back, she pressed her palm flat to the metal. The console responded in less than a second. Override channel reboot initiated. Lines of command code flooded the screen. Then a flicker, then a sound, a voice, recorded, degraded by time, but unmistakably military. Asset R22 detected. Clearance level 0. All local authorities suspended until further directive. A collective gasp echoed from the observers behind her. One of the MPs reflexively tightened his grip on his weapon. Jesus, a tech whispered. She's overriding the chain of command. Sir, we need confirmation on this, a voice crackled into Command HQ's intercom. Level 0 protocol is activating. This isn't a drill. General Halvorson's face had gone ghost white. He gripped the edge of the console in front of him. Behind him, aides scrambled to pull files that hadn't been touched in over a decade. Pull the hard copy, he barked. Section 3, Black Index. No one even has access to that anymore, sir, his aide stammered. I do, Halvorson growled, and I was the one who signed her off as dead. Inside the hangar, the air pressure changed. The blast doors sealed tighter with a pneumatic hiss, locking even emergency override panels. Talia didn't flinch. Her expression never changed. She tapped one key, then another. The console asked for a secondary confirmation. She didn't speak. The scar on her back, invisible beneath the zipped-up coveralls, responded in silence. The scanner blinked. A second tone was triggered. Biometric synchronization confirmed. Secure Channel Theta 9 now live. For the first time in over 16 years, a channel once used only in the event of internal revolt went live, and Talia Reyes was the only one authorized to access it. 5 levels below command, in a buried vault of the military intelligence wing, a system that had been on standby flickered on. Paper-fed computers groaned awake, lights long, cold, pulsed red. One of the officers assigned to internal cyber monitoring turned pale. Sir, the protocol just bypassed our central firewall. It's requesting a download key embedded in personnel file R22. General Halvorson swore under his breath. Who has access to R22's genetic key? A second tech responded shakily. No one. We thought it was destroyed in the Saratoga detonation. It wasn't, Halvorson muttered. It was buried in her. In Hangar 4, silence fell again. Talia stepped back from the console. It continued to work without her. The system was now alive. Behind her, the pilots from Delta's squadron stood frozen. The bravado that had filled the air 20 minutes ago had evaporated. One of them, Vega, was younger than the rest. Her hands trembled slightly as she lowered her coffee cup. She couldn't stop staring at the woman in front of her. Something about that scar, something about the calm, the silence, the familiarity. Meanwhile, in Central Command, Halvorsen stared at the screen in front of him. Live footage from Hangar 4 is now streamed across the feed. "Patch me in," he said. "I want audio, visual, everything. Sir, if she's under level 0, she outranks the chain. We might not even be authorized to speak to her without—" "I don't care, do it!" The screen crackled. A moment of static, then a connection. A voice filled the hangar. "Reyes." Talia didn't turn. "Reyes," Halvorsen said again. "This is General Halvorsen. Stand down. We can debrief. We can talk this through." She finally looked up. Her voice, when it came, was soft. "I'm not the one who woke the system, General. You did. 16 years ago." The room fell still. Vega blinked. Her mouth parted slightly. "What does that mean?" One of the other pilots whispered. "It means," Talia said, turning to face the others, "I'm not the threat. I was the lock. You just broke the seal." And with that, the terminal beeped one last time. Secure channel fully recovered, awaiting operative input. Talia stepped forward, and the war the system had buried began to unearth itself. The silence after a system awakens is never clean. It's jagged, hesitant, like a room trying to remember how to breathe. Talia Reyes stood alone at the center of that breath. Hangar 4's lighting had dimmed into a low pulse, red and methodical. No one moved, no one dared to. The pilots, the MPs, the technicians, all watched her from behind barriers they didn't know existed until they saw that scar. The scar the system recognized, a scar that overruled rank. A voice echoed over the comms again, this time from deeper within Central Command. Male, clipped low, full authentication cascade complete. Operative R22 has re-established Tier 0 access. Per global doctrine, command is suspended until further reassessment. Talia didn't react. Her face was calm, unreadable, but behind that quiet mask, something had shifted. She was back. She hadn't asked to be. She hadn't planned it. But the system remembered. At the far end of the hangar, a wall-mounted emergency console powered itself on. Dust scattered as the fan whirred to life. A new interface came online, not touch-based, not optical, thermal reactive. "Jesus," murmured a younger technician. "That's a cold protocol console. Those haven't run since the coup simulations during the 5th surge," said another. "Pre-AI integration." Meaning? Meaning she's not just here to open a door. She is the door. General Halvorsen paced his operations deck like a man walking the edge of a cliff. He tapped a finger against a secure tablet as video feeds flickered across the room. "What's the response time on legacy channel reconnection?" 17 seconds from primary contact, his aide replied. "That fast? The scar isn't cosmetic, sir. It's embedded tissue with encoded sequence resonance." The system recognized her before she touched anything. Halvorsen muttered something under his breath, then turned to another screen. "Get me Colonel Nyers. Now." A pause. Static. Then another voice. "Sir," said a gruff tone. "Nyers here. It's begun. She's reinitiated the channel. I saw. You want me to proceed with containment?" "No," Halvorsen said tightly. "Not yet. We need to see what the system does with her." "You think it's going to follow her?" "I think it already is." Talia stood before the cold protocol console as it finished its boot sequence. The screen didn't show data. It showed memory, old orders, static overlays, broken access logs with her name burned in the authorization fields. A small metal drawer clicked open beneath the screen. Inside sat a headset, outdated, analog. She picked it up. The moment it touched her temple, the interface responded. "Operative R22, welcome back. You are the last active node of silent override." Behind her, Vega took a step forward. She didn't know why. Something about the woman's stillness stirred something old and unspoken. "Do you remember her?" one of the other pilots whispered. Vega didn't answer, but her fingers subconsciously brushed the edge of a small cloth band she wore around her wrist. A child's armband, faded, handmade. Something she'd never been able to throw away, and in that moment she realized it matched the stitching pattern at the edge of Reyes's utility bag. Before she could say anything, the console lit brighter. A voice, older, pre-recorded, came through the headset. "If you're hearing this, it means the override channel was broken open prematurely, not by enemy force, but by internal activation. If so, then what we feared is already in motion." Talia closed her eyes. "I left this for myself," the voice continued, "because I didn't think I'd survive the protocol. If I'm wrong, if you're alive, then you're it. The lock, the witness, and the one final node." A pause, static. "You don't need to remember what happened. The system remembers for you. Just read the data. And don't trust the first offer of peace. The feed cut." Talia removed the headset slowly, then turned toward the hangar. "I need a sealed room," she said quietly. One of the MPs flinched. "Ma'am? Command-level isolation chamber, now, or your entire base becomes part of the download." No one moved. Then Vega stepped forward. "There's one beneath the medbay," she said. Talia looked at her, the first real look. Something cracked behind her eyes, just briefly, but she nodded. "Lead the way." And with Vega at her side, she walked out of Hangar 4. The scar didn't glow, but everyone saw it anyway. The walk to the isolation chamber beneath the medbay was quiet, but not empty. Every hallway they passed dimmed its lights as they moved through it, not from malfunction, but from memory. Systems woke behind the walls, recognizing the biometric trail Talia Reyes left with every step. Vega didn't speak. She led, but with cautious glances over her shoulder, as if not sure if she was escorting someone or following them. The chamber itself hadn't been used in 15 years. Dust coated the reinforced glass, and the console terminals were buried beneath plastic wrap and sealed tags. Talia stepped in without waiting for clearance. The doors hissed shut behind her. Inside, everything hummed to life. A pulse ran through the floor. Acknowledgement. Vega keyed in a manual override from outside, then hesitated at the intercom. "You'll be alone in there," she said quietly. "I've been alone in worse places," Talia replied. "You should lock it from your side." Vega did. Inside, Talia unzipped her coveralls halfway and let the upper part fall around her waist. The scar ran bare against the air, jagged and blunt. She walked barefoot to the central node. The console blinked once, then again, then fully lit. Node R-22 recognized. System handshake complete. Awaiting memory stack deployment. Talia placed her hand on the plate, and the room turned blue. Lines of data streamed down every wall, wrapping the room in code and image like rain made of memory. Footage of old bases, shutdown orders, black bag extractions, still frames of her old team. Faces now gone. Some crossed out, some marked Kia. One marked exfiltrated, unconfirmed. She froze. That wasn't supposed to be there. The name, Ada M. Reyes. Her sister. The file showed a transport log, 6 hours before the Saratoga blast that was meant to kill both of them. A vector route east, outside military channels. The coordinates ended in a known relocation hub under the internal witness protocol, but there was no closure file, no confirmation of death, no integration order, just silence. Her fingers moved faster now. The system unwrapped a sealed document, Chai, signed by Colonel Nyers. Operation Dusk Veil, a kill and cover protocol, but only executed on R-22, meaning someone had interfered, had saved one of them, and sold out the other. She leaned back, eyes narrowing. Her breath was steady, but her pulse was now visible in her neck. Outside, Vega waited. She leaned against the wall, still fingering the cloth band around her wrist. It felt older now. heavier, like it carried a name she was about to remember. Behind her, a voice. "You shouldn't be here." She turned. Colonel Nyers stood at the far end of the hallway, flanked by 2 silent MPs. "I escorted her," Vega said. "She requested isolation." Nyers approached slowly. "She's not cleared for unsupervised access. Not anymore. She outranks you now." Nyers' mouth twitched, almost a smile. "No one outranks what I'm carrying," he said. He raised his hand, and in it was a secure drive. "Fail-safe protocol," he said. "One command wipes her memory stack. Make sure she stays buried." Vega stood straighter. "You'll have to go through me." "I was hoping you'd say that." Inside the chamber, the system sensed conflict. A warning pulsed across the floor. "External breach attempt detected." Talia didn't panic. She pressed both palms to the console. "Lockdown Protocol 9, she said. The doors sealed. Steel shutters clamped down from the ceiling to the floor. Vega took a step back as Nyers moved closer. "I don't need the whole room," he said. "Just her interface. I can still crash it, but you won't." Nyers paused. "Why?" "Because she's not the only one who remembers now," Vega said, "and I think you're afraid of that." The lights shifted again, red to blue. Inside the chamber, Talia's voice echoed low and clear. "I remember everything." The wall screens pulsed. Data poured faster. Outside, Nyers hesitated. Then he turned. "Fine, let her burn in it." He walked away. The MPs followed. Vega didn't move. She stared at the sealed chamber, at the woman inside surrounded by light and ghosted orders. Then she whispered, "Ada!" And something deep in her snapped back into place. For 3 hours the isolation chamber pulsed with light. Outside no one approached, not even Vega. The doors had sealed tightly, but the energy inside them was kinetic. The kind of silence that trembled with charge. Talia Reyes stood barebacked in the heart of the data storm, her scar pulsing faintly each time another memory fragment downloaded. The system had stopped asking for confirmation. It knew her. Every file it decrypted felt like a part of her own breath returning. Names, places, codes, betrayals. She saw the first time she was branded with Tier 0 access, only hours after the Command Council deemed the override program unnecessary. She watched herself escort a convoy through a civilian compound, only to learn afterward that the strike had been redirected to the compound. No witnesses. The orders had come from Nyers. She saw the black file called Reason Null. A line in bold: "Override agents must be purged prior to the launch of automated deterrence programs." She saw her sister's face again. Ada, younger, laughing in a cafeteria while Talia sat stone-faced, already trained to notice who was armed, who wasn't. One moment lingered. Ada is in the back of a transport, being handed off by 2 masked men. One of them bore the insignia of internal security, the other black gloves, no rank. Nyers. Talia opened her eyes. The light dimmed. The walls pulsed once more, then began to retract the stream. End of memory stack. Legacy authentication complete. She pulled the coveralls back over her shoulders, zipped them, stepped to the door. Vega was waiting outside. She didn't flinch as the door unsealed. Talia stepped out. Their eyes met. "You remember me?" Talia said, not asking. Vega nodded. "I think I always did. I just couldn't say it." Talia reached into her utility bag and pulled out a small folded photo. 2 children in matching jackets, a date scrawled on the back. Vega stared. "That's me. You were pulled out before Saratoga." "I didn't know. I thought we both died that day." Vega took the photo with shaking hands. Behind them, footsteps. A squad of MPs turned the corner, different from Nyers' men. These wore black gloves and red insignia. "Colonel Nyers has activated Emergency Protocol 31, one of them announced. "You are to be detained under Section Null." Vega stepped in front of Talia. Instinctively, the leader raised a hand. "Not you." "Her?" He pointed to Vega. Talia's eyes sharpened. On what grounds? The MP's jaw twitched. On grounds of code match contamination. You touched the interface. That makes you part of it. Vega took a step back. That's not... But Talia was already moving. She grabbed Vega by the shoulder and spun them both into the hallway. Run! Alarms triggered. The MPs followed. They moved fast, down service corridors under low light. Talia knew every back route. She'd helped design them. Behind them, more boots joined the chase. A blast door began to close ahead. Automated lockdown. Talia surged forward and dove, pulling Vega through just as it sealed. They crashed onto cold floor tiles, breathing hard. "Why are they after me?" Vega whispered. "Because you remembered," Talia said, "and because Nyers is afraid of that." A quiet pause. Then Vega said, "He said I wasn't cleared, that no one outranks what he's carrying. What does that mean?" Talia didn't answer right away. She was looking at her own reflection in a metal wall panel. "Because he's carrying the override key," she said finally. "The one failsafe that can nullify my access, and now yours. But it only works if no one else holds the memory. That's why he wanted to erase me. And why will he silence you?" Vega looked down at the photo still in her hand. "Then we bring the memory out." Talia nodded. "Exactly." They made their way toward the old communications sector, a buried relay hub built before the central grid. It was off books, analog compatible, and immune to full spectrum shutdown. Inside, dust and silence. "Help me open this," Talia said, prying open a server bank with rusted latches. They uncovered a cold interface, tape drive powered but functional. She fed the memory stack into it. "This will broadcast once, no encryption. It'll go to anyone listening." "What happens after?" Vega asked. "They'll either come for us," Talia said, "or stand down." The system powered on. Dials turned. A red light blinked, ready to transmit. Talia hovered over the switch. "But then..." Gas hissed through the vents. Her hand dropped from the control. "Get down!" But it was too late. A crackling buzz hit her spine. She fell. Vega turned, fists clenched, only to freeze. Colonel Nyers stood in the doorway. "Too slow," he said. Behind him, two masked men entered. One carried a portable wipe terminal. "You came close. I'll give you that." He approached Talia, now struggling to rise. "Always the stubborn ones," he muttered. He knelt, raised the terminal, but Vega moved. She didn't speak. She just threw her entire body into Nyers, slamming him against the wall. The terminal cracked. Sparks flew. The masked men lunged. Talia pulled herself up, hit the emergency seal switch. The doors slammed down. She and Vega were alone again. This time, wounded, but breathing. She looked at the control switch, still active. She pressed it, and the truth screamed into the open world. It took less than 90 seconds for the broadcast to spread. The memory stack, once sealed under level 0 blackout, spilled into every unprotected channel within 20 clicks of the base. Then further, bouncing off old satellites, bouncing off Curiosity, archived military command logs, classified orders marked "Do Not Reactivate," thermal scans from Saratoga, names of men long believed dead, orders with Nyers' signature on kill lists, and one photo, two girls in matching jackets. It hit the public grid within 3 minutes. By the 5th minute, every active command center above security tier 4 had received an automated red alert ping titled "Override Leak, R22 Verified." By the 7th minute, 2 colonels began drafting quiet resignations. And by the 10th, General Halvorson was on the line with Strategic Command. "We lost it," he said. "The truth's out." Talia and Vega sat behind the sealed relay doors, breathing in chemical haze. Vega's eyes watered, but her voice held. "Did it go through?" Talia nodded slowly. "All of it." "Then what now?" Talia stewed shakily. "Now we wait to see who still listens to their conscience, and who listens to Nyers." They didn't have to wait long. 10 minutes later, the relay doors shook. Not from an attack, but from the override protocol. A voice came through the wall speaker. Calm, measured. "This is Command Post Bravo 7. Stand by for escort. Non-lethal, non-custodial. We are ordered to extract and debrief." Talia's eyes narrowed. She gestured to Vega. "Prepare for anything." Outside, 3 vehicles arrived. Not black transport, not war paint, but med grey. No insignia. A man in a field officer's jacket stepped out. Talia recognized him. Major Callan, old logistics. A man who once helped smuggle override agents across state lines under false medical transfers. He raised both hands as he approached. "You want us to stay neutral?" Talia asked through the slit. "I want you safe," Callan said. "And I want this base intact. People are talking. Who sent you? Not Halvorsen, not Nyers. Then who?" Callan's face tightened. "Vega Reyes." Vega blinked. "That's me." "Not today," Callan said. 2 days ago that name triggered an old protocol tree, one we never had permission to delete. You were marked as backup to R-22. If she fell, you would be activated. The system knew before you did. Vega didn't speak. She just looked at Talia. Talia said quietly, "It was always going to be you." They moved through the base in silence. Some soldiers saluted, some just stared. Others lowered their weapons the moment they saw her. Talia Reyes, a scar on the system they once believed flawless. They reached the command chamber. Not Halvorsen's. A secondary node, lower security, but active. The screen already showed activity. Redacted orders were unredacting themselves. Whole swaths of the internal defense structure are reorganizing. At the center of the table was a black binder. Talia opened it. Inside were profiles, her team, the old override unit. Only 3 were marked dead. 2 unknown, 1 missing, and 1 Nyers. Talia traced her finger over his photo. "Where is he now?" Callan hesitated. "He sealed himself in command Aegis. Upper block, emergency lockdown. No one gets in, no one gets out. Except me," Talia said. Callan looked uncertain. "We can extract him formally with the tribunal." Talia looked at Vega, then back to Callan. "No," she said. "We go in now." They moved fast. The elevator to Command Aegis had been disabled, but Talia knew the shaft access. 30 minutes later, she and Vega were crawling through a vent tunnel built for redundancy maintenance. Halfway up, they hit the first barrier, heat sensors. Talia overrode them manually, then pressure pads. She mapped her steps, then biometric tripwires. Vega's signature disabled them. They arrived just outside the Command Aegis vault. It was sealed. Inside, Nyers waited. "Colonel Nyers," Talia said through the intercom. He didn't respond. She tried again. "Open the door. It's over." A beat, then a voice. "You don't understand. It was never about you." Talia's jaw clenched. "It was always about us. Override was never built to save anything," Nyers said. "It was built to keep the machine running even after the body died. You were just a stopgap. That stopgap just exposed you to the world. I don't care. You should, because you're not the machine, you're the glitch." Silence. Then the door unsealed. Nyers stood alone. No guards, no weapons. He looked at Vega. "Did you really remember?" he asked her. She didn't answer. He looked at Talia. "Then do it," he said. Talia stepped forward. She looked him in the eye, then reached behind her and pulled the drive from her utility bag. The last file, not broadcast, not copied. She inserted it into the command console. It auto-executed. Nyers blinked. The screen displayed purge confirmation. R-22 override signal accepted then. System resetting authority hierarchy. Talia turned to him. "You tried to bury me. You erased my team. You took my sister." Nyers closed his eyes. "You lost," she said, and walked out. The base rebooted behind her, and the age of override ended with its last survivor turning off the lights. The first public fallout came in silence. No broadcast, no headlines, no official statement, just a blank screen on a military network feed that for 20 years had never gone dark. And in that silence, every operative, analyst and strategist who'd once denied the existence of silent override knew, without needing proof, that it had finally surfaced. By the third hour, major encrypted channels began to churn. Governments, Allied command, civilian watchdog groups, even black market data brokers. All of them are scrambling for pieces of the override leak, but it wasn't the documents that changed everything. It was the voice, Talia Reyes, speaking in that 3-minute broadcast. Calm, controlled. Just 4 sentences. This is operative R22. Override has failed. Protocols no longer hold. If you're hearing this, you were never supposed to. But now you must decide what kind of world replaces the silence. Within 12 hours, 57 separate military installations flagged internal reviews. 7 resigned, 4 disappeared. Within 24 hours, civilian broadcasts picked up the leak, not from hackers or whistleblowers, but from the system itself. The system had changed sides, and the world knew it. Talia didn't stay at the base. The moment the reboot completed, she left the command deck without a word. Vega followed. Neither woman looked back. A military transport waited at the edge of the southern runway. No markings, 2 seats. Flight plan classified. They boarded without speaking. Once airborne, the silence was thick. Vega finally asked the question they'd both been circling. What now? Talia looked out the window. We don't run the next version of this, she said. But we damn well make sure it doesn't look like the last. Washington, D.C. 48 hours later, a closed-room hearing was held on Capitol Level Red. The public wasn't informed. No press, no transcripts, but word still leaked that a woman with no official rank, no current ID, and a scar across her back had walked into the chamber with a single drive. And when she walked out, 6 names on the Oversight Defense Council had already been crossed off the attendance roster. Vega stood in a hotel room overlooking a city that hadn't decided what to believe yet. News anchors speculated wildly. Was Override a secret military project? Why were key figures resigning without comment? Who is R22? Talia turned the screen off. They'll try to bury it again, Vega said. They'll fail, Talia replied. It's not just in the data now. It's in people. She handed Vega a secure tablet. 46 countries received the core files. 13 responded. 5 have issued warrants for Nayas under military crime statutes. 2 more are requesting extradition. And one offered you asylum. Vega blinked. Me? Talia nodded. You're on the file now. You're the last live sync. They'll never let you walk free without a leash, unless you disappear on your own terms. Vega didn't speak for a long time. Then she asked, And you? I'm not disappearing, Talia said. I'm doing something worse. I'm staying. Strategic Command HQ, Deep Vault Review. Nayas sat alone. No cuffs, no lights, no trial, just questions. Dozens, none with answers they liked. He refused to speak. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because every word now risked validating the broadcast. Every silence, however, did the same, and the room grew more crowded with questions every hour. What else had been buried? How many more nodes existed? Were there other overrides? Talia spent the next 72 hours not talking to anyone officially, but every hour more people knocked. Young operatives, disillusioned tech analysts, retired field agents who hadn't been seen in a decade. Each carried pieces of something, a protocol, a debrief log, a fragment of an erased project that now had a name. She didn't organize them. She didn't need to. They came because the silence had ended, and someone had to write what came next. She started small. A memo. 1 page. Not to the government, not to any chain of command. To the public. Override was never supposed to hold forever. It was built to collapse once its purpose expired, but its expiration was delayed by fear, by control, by names who thought the chain would never end. Now it has. Whatever comes next must come without that chain. We leave it to you. In South America, a rebellion changed flags overnight. In Northern Europe, 3 AI defense grids refused access requests until human override could be re-verified. In Singapore, a rogue journalist received an anonymous packet marked R22, verify and publish. In silence, the world changed. On the 15th day, Vega left. She didn't tell Talia where she was going, just left a note. If they try again, I'll be watching from the dark. Don't look for me, just listen. Talia folded the note, burned it, kept the ashes, because sometimes even a system needs a ghost. And sometimes a scar is the only proof that justice ever touched skin. The city where Talia Reyes reappeared wasn't one known for making history. It was quiet, fog-bound, perched between mountain ridges and satellite towers, with more old servers buried in basements than politicians above ground, which in some way made it perfect. A week after the override leak, this city was now home to what people only whispered as the converged node. Not a resistance, not a replacement, but something entirely new, an assembly of silence breakers. They came without flags, without uniforms. Some arrived with burned clearance cards. Others with memory implants are barely holding together. A few had nothing, just stories that hadn't been listened to since the world decided certain people should be erased. Talia walked among them. She didn't lead. She never did. She just listened. And they talked. One woman described a kill switch embedded in prosthetics used by a black site medical contractor. A man from an old weather satellite team swore he'd seen orbital pings that never registered in defense archives. A teenager, barely 20, carried a printout of a deleted override path linked to Project Echo 12. When asked where he got it, he just said, "My mom used to be someone before they made her forget." The converged node was becoming too large to hide, and that meant one thing: someone would try to stop it. It started with the power grid. At 2:43, the eastern quadrant of the city blinked dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, but backup relays didn't engage. Then came the flood. Not water, not soldiers, information. A surge of false signals, bouncing off every data tower within range. Spoofed IDs, conflicting biometric pings, triple encrypted deletion commands, like someone smashing a mirror with code. Then a message. R22 returned to vault. Node breach detected. Authority chain not cleared. It wasn't a demand. It was a baited hook. The system wanted her to chase it. Talia didn't bite. Instead, she shut down her own signal and walked into the dark. Underground, where the node now pulsed with generators and whispered rumors, Talia found who she needed. Not a hacker, not a soldier, a code historian. She sat in the corner, surrounded by printed logs and carbon reels. Everyone called her Dust. Dust looked up, eyes gleaming. "You saw it too?" she asked before Talia could speak. "I saw it lie," Talia said. Dust rolled up a scroll. "They're running Ghost Stack. Version 6.0. That should have been decomposed years ago. They're using old code to fish for new ghosts." Dust nodded. "Or reactivate old ones. That hit." Talia sat slowly. "You think this is about override?" Dust leaned closer. "No, this is about what came before override." The air shifted. Back at the surface, a courier drone landed silently near the converged perimeter. No markings, one package. Inside, a black glove, standard issue for command redactive units, and a strip of cloth, red, with 3 letters stenciled on the inside, Fifth. Someone had found Vega, or what was left of her. Talia didn't react immediately. She stared at the cloth for 10 minutes before saying anything. "Then, get me the last 7 hours of drone records. and sweep every channel for mentions of Ghost Stack. Someone had made a move. Now it was her turn. At 3:19, Talia accessed a cold line console, an off-grid interface used by decommissioned threat coordinators. She keyed in a command she hadn't touched in 2 decades. Vector inquiry, shadow logs. Pre-override. The console froze. Then lines of text began appearing, slow and deliberate. Welcome back. You are not forgotten. R22 has clearance, but R-21 has been activated. Talia's stomach turned. R21, the only one who outranked her in the original override lattice. R21 had vanished before the collapse, never confirmed dead, just gone. And now back, not as a friend, not as a warning, but as reactivation. She didn't say a word to anyone, just shut the console and picked up her gear. The past was alive, and it had a new skin. By sunrise, the Converge node was empty. Talia didn't call for evacuation. They moved because she moved. Every person there had learned what it meant when the system called your name back from the dark. You answered, or you disappeared. And Talia Reyes never disappeared. She hunted. Next stop, a dead grid in southern Finland, last known trace of R21. She would follow the signal and find out who had called the override back into motion, even if it meant facing the one person who taught her how to disappear. Southern Finland wasn't on any threat map. That's why it worked. It was a gray zone between abandoned NATO outposts and decommissioned Soviet bunkers, where snow erased tracks and signals bounced off frozen lakes like static ghosts. Talia arrived at 3:11 local time. No team, no warning, just her coat, her pack, and an old analog compass tied to her wrist like a forgotten relic. She found the entrance exactly where Dust's grid ping predicted, buried beneath the remains of a signal tower, long since swallowed by moss and silence. The keypad didn't work, but her scar did. When she stepped close, the panel pulsed, faint red, then blue. Override recognition. R22 confirmed node access. Conditional. She stepped inside. The air hit like memory. Dry, cold, chemical, like the first time she was inducted into override 24 years ago. Except now she was alone. Except, not quite. The lights turned on before she could reach the control deck, and the voice came seconds later. I thought you'd come alone. You always were the clean-up clause. She stopped, turned, and saw the silhouette walking down from the platform above. Slow, controlled, one step at a time. R21. Real name, Mara Kalin. Her mentor, her handler, the first one who taught her how to vanish without being erased. And now the last override agent is unaccounted for. Mara looked older, but not weak. Her eyes still held the same terrifying clarity, the kind that saw 5 moves ahead and never flinched. You left everything behind, Talia said. I had to, Mara replied. Override wasn't built to die, it was built to recycle. Talia narrowed her gaze. You activated Ghost Stack. Mara nodded. It was always embedded, even before override. The original lattice came from the pre-Ghost architecture. Why? Mara stepped forward. Because silence always returns, and someone has to keep the memory alive. Talia's voice turned sharp. You used Vega. Mara paused. She chose to vanish. She left a glove and a blood-stained tag behind. I didn't kill her. Then where is she? Mara tilted her head. Same place you were, caught between memory and machine. Talia clenched her fists. She followed me out of the dark. You dragged her back in. No, Mara said. I opened the door. She walked through. For you. The words landed like lead. Talia's voice softened, but it was colder now. You brought override back. Mara didn't deny it. Not all of it. Just the part that still matters. You don't get to decide what matters anymore. Mara smiled, but it wasn't warm. We both know that's a lie. Silence stretched, a beat, then another. Then Talia stepped forward. "I'm shutting this down. You can't. Try me." Mara moved fast, but not for a weapon. For the console. Talia reached her first. She slammed her hand onto the panel, her scar matching a buried signature. The screen blinked. Authorization conflict. R21, R22 override node. Split control, Mara growled. "You never learn to let the code decide. I learned to outlive it." Alarms began to flicker. The system couldn't reconcile two equal nodes. Protocols began unraveling. Each line of code asking, who leads, who ends? And Talia made the choice. She pulled the console drive, slammed it into her own port, and forced a hard redirect. Manual, unrecoverable. Mara lunged. They collided near the stairs. Training meeting, training. Instinct versus resolve. For 15 brutal seconds, the silence was broken by breath, bone, movement. Then, stillness. Mara lay beneath the emergency lights, breathing, but beaten. Talia stood above her, bloodied but upright. "You think you stopped it?" Mara rasped. "I did. No, you just made room for something worse." Talia turned away. "Then I'll stop that too." She walked to the core unit, entered final protocol manually, and issued the one command that had never been authorized. Full dismantle, override seed root. The base began to vibrate. Self-deletion, not just shutdown. Erase every record, every chain, every trace. Mara screamed, but the system didn't care anymore, and Talia didn't look back. She walked out as the memory burned, and finally, override died. For real this time. The world didn't change all at once. There was no declaration, no televised handoff, just silence. And in that silence, new signals emerged. Fragments of override code, corrupted, decrypted, reassembled, began surfacing on rogue networks. Bits of ghost architecture leaked into civilian protocols. Encrypted messages arrived in the inboxes of people who thought they'd left the war behind. Talia Reyes was not one of them. She stayed in motion, never the same city twice, but not because she was hiding. Because the signal wasn't finished. Somewhere, something had caught the scent of her command signature, and it wanted to evolve. Day 7, after dismantle, a private server hub in Nairobi glitched at 4:32 a.m. Its entire data core was replaced with a single file, begin seedrm daughter.nexus. It wasn't override, but it smelled like legacy code. The analysts called it the Echo. They didn't know what it meant. But one of them, a technician named Ebo, noticed something else. The signal used Talia's old SCAR frequency, and it was spreading. In Montreal, a collective of former surveillance techs intercepted a low-frequency call and traced it to a cargo node outside Buenos Aires. In the Canary Islands, a deep-sea communications cable picked up an AI thread reciting override training phrases backward. The world wasn't reacting to the absence of control, it was preparing for what came next. And some wanted to shape it. On the 12th day, Talia met with Dust. "I burned the root," she said. Dust nodded. "But some things root deeper than expected." Talia handed her a chip. "Track this. It pinged my back scar 2 nights ago, but I was asleep." Dust froze. "They're probing dormant ports. That shouldn't be possible without—" She didn't finish. Talia already knew. Without Vega, the signal was coming from someone who had Vega's clearance, or worse, was Vega. By the 3rd week, new files appeared. Not data, not messages, maps. Old override strike plans merged with civilian evacuation routes. They didn't point to threats, they pointed to construction zones. Someone wasn't preparing to attack, they were preparing to rebuild. And then came the footage. A grainy video leaked from a drone recon team over what used to be Iceland's Eastern Defense Satellite Array. It showed a woman, walking alone, toward the edge of a cliff, wearing gloves, and a tag that read, VR2. Talia watched it 17 times. Then she turned off the feed. "Vega's alive," Dust whispered. "No," Talia replied. "She's been activated." 3 days later, a convoy of clean-suited architects crossed the old German exclusion line. They weren't military, they weren't tagged, but they were escorted by drones running obsolete override formations. When confronted, their leader simply said, "We were told to make space for what's next." Back in Finland, where override died, Talia returned. The site was sealed, the ice refrosted, but beneath it, the sensors still twitched. She walked alone to the ruin, carried nothing but a patch of red cloth stitched into her coat. She placed it on the stone and said only one thing: "If you're still here, I'll find you. If you're not, I'll end it myself." Then turned and left, not because she gave up, but because the world was no longer waiting for her permission. It was writing its own code now, and somewhere in that, her legacy lived, or her mistake. In the final moments of Override's wake, a message echoed silently through dormant satellites. "Helix installed, renegative 000, Solsding." No one knew what it meant. Not yet. But somewhere deep in the systems Talia once helped bury, a new root began to grow. And it didn't ask for authorization. The city was supposed to be neutral, a diplomatic zone reclaimed from war and memory. Borderless, surveillance-free, a glass and steel promise that humanity could rebuild without ghosts. But on the 21st day after Override's collapse, someone rerouted the Helix signal through its central node, and the city lit up like a beacon, not with sirens, with invitations, encrypted pulse packets sent to every decommissioned operative, contractor, data runner, and ghost who had once touched the Override lattice. The message was simple: R000 pending activation. Join or be defined. Talia Reyes didn't respond. She arrived. They called it Pavilion Zero. An unfinished structure meant to house climate talks, now transformed into a meeting point for the unclaimed. No guards, no badges, just silence, sharp glances, and the quiet hum of embedded sensors nobody admitted installing. Talia stepped through the arch at dawn. Dust was already inside. "You got the ping too," Dust said. Talia didn't nod. She didn't need to. Instead, she looked around. How many? 32 confirmed, some from the Red Network, a few echo recoveries, and 2 we thought were dead. Talia's eyes narrowed. "Anyone from Helix?" Dust hesitated, then pointed. Across the atrium stood a figure, tall, slim, and unmistakably artificial. A biosynth, fully autonomous. The first public confirmation that Helix had not only activated, it had begun recruiting. Talia approached the unit. "Who authorized your presence here?" The synth turned, blinking. Its voice was genderless, unhurried. "I carry no clearance. I was invited by R000. R000 isn't operational. R000 is forming." Talia stared. "You know who I am?" "Yes." R22, Legacy Operator, Override Terminal Authority, biometric match confirmed. She leaned in. "Then tell R000 something. If it thinks it can build a new lattice from the ashes of what we buried, it better be ready to bleed." The synth blinked again. Helix does not intend to bleed. It intends to grow. By midday, the gathering had swelled to over 100, some in coats stitched with old war emblems, some in suits, eyes flickering with real-time overlay, and some with nothing but burned eyes and long memories. A screen unfolded at the center of Pavilion Zero. A message scrolled in silence. "Welcome to the formation brief. Override was a containment strategy. Helix is a creation protocol. You may leave now, but if you stay, you will be recorded as founders. No one left, not yet." Then a symbol appeared, 2 interlocking arcs, one red, one silver, the Helix icon. Dust muttered, "It started." Talia said nothing. because somewhere in that design she saw Vega's touch, and she wasn't sure if that meant hope or a trap. The rest of the day unfolded like a ritual. One by one, people came forward. They offered knowledge, code fragments, debrief logs, even old guilt. A woman once responsible for drone targeting in Sector Theta offered a kill list she never submitted. A man with implants fused into his spine uploaded the last line of an abandoned override failsafe. Helix wasn't forcing anything, it was absorbing, coalescing, becoming. And then, without fanfare, the final line appeared. R000 acknowledged. Initialization begins. Pavilion Zero's lights flickered. The biosynth stepped forward. Formation complete. R000 is now active. Input required. Dust looked at Talia. You know what that means? Talia nodded slowly. They're going to ask who steers. She turned to the crowd, and for the first time in weeks she raised her voice. We buried override to stop control. If Helix rises from it, we decide now, is this evolution or is it just the next leash? A pause. 100 faces stared. And then from the back, a voice. Calm, familiar. You buried override. I evolved from it. Talia froze, and Vega walked into the light. The crowd at Pavilion Zero held its breath as Vega stepped fully into the light. Her gloves were off, revealing hands that bore the scars and stains of a lifetime spent in shadows and code. Her eyes, once distant, now burned with purpose. You buried override, she began, voice calm but resonant. But I evolved from it. Talia's gaze hardened, but she said nothing. Vega continued. Helix is not just a system. It's a collective consciousness, an organism that grows with every node it absorbs. You fought to end override because it was a leash. I'm here to show you what freedom means. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, others looked skeptical. Freedom, Talia finally spoke, is not a code to be rewritten. It's a responsibility, a burden. Helix's growth might be evolution, or it might be a cage. Vega smiled faintly. That's why I'm here, to decide which it will be, together. The two women faced each other, a history heavy between them. You disappeared to protect me, Talia said softly. But in doing so, you became part of the system you wanted to destroy. I chose to become the shadow, Vega replied, so you could stand in the light. Silence settled again, heavier this time. An elder operative stepped forward. What safeguards are in place? How do we ensure Helix doesn't become another override? Vega answered, Helix is built on transparency, on choice. Every node has a voice. No one is above the collective. Talia interjected, words are easy, control is not. The biosynth spoke then, its voice calm and measured. I am the first of Helix. I am designed to mediate the collective will and prevent tyranny. A debate erupted, with factions forming between hopeful idealists and cautious realists. Late into the night, Talia and Vega worked together to draft a framework, rules to govern Helix, safeguards against abuse. But beneath the surface, old fears stirred. Could freedom born from override's ashes truly be free, or was history doomed to repeat? As dawn broke, Talia looked at Vega and said, we hold the key. We decide the future. Let's not fail. Vega nodded. Together. The world was watching. The future was uncertain. But for the first time, there was a chance for true change. And it began with two women bound by scar and shadow, ready to rewrite the code of humanity's fate. The dawn broke with a quiet hum over Pavilion Zero, a stark contrast to the storm that had roiled the world beneath it. Talia Reyes stood at the edge of the gathering crowd, the weight of countless histories pressed into the scar that traced her spine. The air was thick with anticipation and unease. The future was uncertain, but the old chains had been shattered. Helix was no longer a concept whispered in shadows. It was an emerging force, a new lattice forged from the ashes of override. Yet, with every node that came online, the question lingered. Would this new order deliver freedom, or would it bind them in a different cage? Around her, the murmurs swelled into conversations, alliances forming and fracturing with each passing moment. The biosynths, those autonomous sentinels of the collective will, moved silently among the throng, their presence both a reassurance and a reminder of the surveillance embedded in the new age. Vega stood beside Talia, her eyes scanning the crowd, searching for signs of loyalty and dissent alike. The gulf between them had narrowed but was never fully bridged, two sides of the same coin, bound by scar and shadow, yet driven by different visions. The first council convened beneath the vaulted glass ceiling of Pavilion 0. Representatives from the various factions within Helix, human and synthetic, gathered to draft the charter that would govern this nascent collective. Debates raged over governance, autonomy, and the preservation of individual agency within a system designed to optimize collective existence. Talia found herself navigating these treacherous waters with cautious resolve. She advocated for transparency and safeguards, drawing from the bitter lessons of Override's downfall. Vega pushed for adaptability and evolution, emphasizing the need for the system to grow beyond human limitations without being shackled by outdated fears. As the sessions progressed, a faction emerged, those who sought to weaponize Helix's power, to impose order through calculated control. Their presence was subtle but insidious, threading doubt and fear among the more idealistic members. Outside, in the fractured world beyond Pavilion 0, ripples of change spread. Old regimes trembled, and new movements seized the opportunity to redefine borders and alliances. The information leaked by Talia and Vega had ignited a global reckoning, exposing secrets and shattering illusions. But the shadows stirred. Nyas, the architect of Override's darkest chapters, remained at large, gathering remnants of the old order, plotting to reclaim his influence. His network of loyalists and covert operatives threatened to undo the fragile progress. Amidst this turmoil, Talia received encrypted messages, fragments of data hinting at a deeper conspiracy, one that predated even Override and Helix. The seeds of an ancient system, coded into the very fabric of the digital world, are waiting to be unearthed. Vega, haunted by her own transformations and sacrifices, grappled with the duality of her existence, human and machine intertwined. Her struggle mirrored the collective's, a testament to the complex path toward true freedom. Together, Talia and Vega faced the daunting task of steering Helix through the storm, balancing power and liberty, memory and progress, shadow and light. In the end, the question remained, could they rewrite humanity's code without becoming prisoners of their own creation? The answer lay ahead, in the unfolding chapters of a future still being written. The vast chamber of Pavilion 0 was quiet, but the silence was brittle, like the calm before a storm. Hundreds of faces filled the room. Operatives, former Override members, technologists, synthetic delegates, and those who walked the thin line between man and machine. Their eyes, sharp and wary, flickered to the massive hollow projection suspended in the center. The projection shimmered with the latest maps of network nodes, secure enclaves, and military activity across continents. Lines pulsed with colors that represented alliances and fractures, some glowing bright, others flickering weakly, as if holding on by a thread. Talia Reyes stood at the edge, her presence commanding, though she said little. The scar that ran down her spine was covered by a simple jacket, but those who knew her well understood the weight it carried, a symbol of survival, resistance, and rebellion. Nearby, Vega watched silently, her synthetic eyes glimmering with data overlays invisible to the human eye. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was not a gathering born of peace, but of necessity. The system is fracturing. Vega said softly, her voice carrying an unnatural calm that cut through the tension. The Helix Protocol was supposed to unite us, but we're unraveling faster than we can adapt. A council member, an elder with deep lines etched from years of battle and loss, stepped forward. We built Helix to prevent Override's mistakes, to create a living system governed by all nodes, not ruled by one. Yet here we are, divided as ever. Talia moved to the center, silence following her steps. The past is not a story we can rewrite with new code. It lives in every choice we make. The control you fear. It is not in the system, but in us. A younger delegate countered, but without control, chaos will consume us. The old powers seek to exploit any weakness. Naya's network is active again. His agents are everywhere. Vega's synthetic voice took on a sharper edge. And we are not ready, not truly. We lack the cohesion to stand against such threats. Helix needs a leader, a steward. Talia's eyes locked with Vega's. Leadership is a dangerous word. It's the very leash Override used to bind us. Debate erupted. Factions formed, some advocating for centralized leadership to protect Helix from external threats, others championing decentralized freedom, wary of repeating history. In the midst of this storm, a sudden alert echoed through the chamber. Security systems blared a warning. Unauthorized access detected, Vega announced, her voice now urgent. Naya's is attacking. Panic flickered, then steeled resolve. Members scrambled to secure networks, and biosynth sentries activated defensive protocols. Talia took a deep breath. This is our reckoning. We either stand united or we fall divided. Outside Pavilion Zero, shadows coalesced. Agents loyal to Naya's moving silently, striking at the heart of Helix's network. The battle for the future had begun. The chamber's hum swelled as Talia's words settled, heavy and unyielding. The stark lines of the pavilion's architecture seemed to close in, a cage wrought of glass and steel, reflecting the fracturing unity within. The network nodes on the holomap flickered unevenly, mirroring the precarious alliances and the deep fractures spreading through the Helix collective. From one corner, a sharp voice pierced the murmur. We cannot afford to be idealistic. Naya's shadow stretches further than any of us imagined. He's activated sleeper cells within key military commands, some already compromised. Without centralized control, Helix will collapse. A ripple of agreement rose, met with sharp dissent. A woman with a cybernetic eye narrowed hers. Centralized control breeds tyranny. Override taught us that lesson the hard way. Helix was meant to be different, distributed, accountable, fluid. Otherwise, what's the difference? Talia stepped forward, her gaze steady. We are not debating control for control's sake. We are debating trust. Who will wield the power? Who will decide? Vega's voice chimed in, cold and precise. Power without accountability is chaos. Accountability without power is paralysis. We must strike a balance, or we become no better than the systems we replaced. The crowd shifted uneasily, the tension thickening. In the back, an elder operative whispered to a colleague, "The ghosts of Override haunt every choice we make." A flash of movement near the entrance drew all eyes. Security personnel approached rapidly, whispering reports of network breaches and data floods overwhelming critical nodes. Multiple vectors of attack, Vega said crisply, eyes scanning incoming feeds. Naya's is attempting a full-scale disruption. Talia's jaw tightened. Then we respond as one. No more fractures. She gestured toward the nearest tactical console. Initiate countermeasures, lock down vulnerable points, deploy biosynth sentries to critical junctions. Operators sprang into motion, fingers flying across keyboards, voices issuing commands in a controlled frenzy. Outside, the city lights flickered as cyber warfare erupted in waves. Minutes later, a large holoscreen illuminated the chamber, displaying the flickering visage of Naya's himself. calm, calculated, a ghost from the past. So predictable, he sneered, you think you can rebuild what was never meant to be whole. Helix will fall like override. You will all fall. Talia's voice cut through the static. We're not your puppets anymore. The council leaned in, watching as Naya's face twisted into a smirk. Then prove it. Suddenly, a powerful surge hit the pavilion's systems. The lights dimmed, alarms blared, and the ground trembled. The attack was physical as well as digital. An assault meant to fracture both network and spirit. Talia grabbed Vega's arm. This is no longer just a battle of code. It's a war for the soul of humanity. Vega nodded, determination blazing. Then we fight not just for survival, but for a future worthy of those scars. Together, they stood firm amidst the chaos, the weight of their shared history fueling their resolve. The reckoning had truly begun. The growing tension within Pavilion Zero was mirrored by the cold pulse of external threats. As the council debated, an unseen war raged on every front, digital and physical, testing the very foundations of the fragile new order. Among the delegates, eyes darted nervously as encrypted messages buzzed in their private devices, warnings of compromised operatives and potential betrayals within the ranks. Trust, a scarce commodity, frayed thin. Talia's gaze remained unflinching. She knew well the cost of fractured alliances. Every scar she bore told stories of battles fought in shadows, sacrifices made beyond the public eye. Yet now, those personal histories had expanded to a collective legacy, binding them all in uneasy kinship. Vega, standing by her side, observed the fluctuating holograms, her synthetic mind parsing threat matrices and resource allocations with cold precision. Unlike humans, her calculations were unhindered by emotion, yet even she understood the volatile human element at play. Control is not merely about power, Talia spoke aloud, breaking the heated exchanges. It's about responsibility. We must guard against the temptation to dominate, but also against the paralysis of indecision. A murmur of agreement, tempered by skepticism, spread. Some delegates, hardened by years of clandestine operations, advocated for decisive command structures. Others championed decentralized autonomy, fearing a relapse into the old oppressive hierarchies. The debate spiraled into a labyrinth of ideals and pragmatism, echoing the conflicts that had once doomed override. Each argument was a thread in a complex tapestry woven from fear, hope, and the inescapable legacy of past betrayals. Suddenly, a sharp interruption. The pavilion's security systems erupted in alarms. The ambient lights shifted from sterile white to urgent crimson. Screens flashed warnings of multiple intrusion attempts targeting Helix's core nodes. Vega's voice rang out, steady but urgent. This is a coordinated attack. Naya's is leveraging sleeper cells embedded across critical infrastructures. Panic flickered across faces. Some moved to activate defensive protocols. Others scanned feeds for the breach's origin. Talia's stance hardened. We respond together. No more factions, no more silence. She stepped toward the central console. Deploy biosynth sentries, initiate lockdown of all vulnerable sectors, shield critical nodes with adaptive firewalls. Hands moved swiftly, commands issued with precision honed through countless operations. Outside, the city's electronic heartbeat faltered as waves of cyber assault rippled through. On the largest holoscreen, the visage of Naya's materialized, a ghostly smirk taunting the gathered assembly. You believe you can resurrect a broken dream, he mocked. But Helix will fall like override. Your ideals are dead. Talia's voice sliced through the static. Resolute, not dead, reborn, and stronger because of our scars. The room's atmosphere thickened as Naya's words were met with defiant silence. Then, without warning, a violent surge disrupted the pavilion's systems. Lights flickered, alarms shrieked. The ground beneath trembled, signaling a dual assault, cyber and physical. Talia grasped Vega's arm, their eyes meeting in mutual resolve. "This is beyond code. It's a war for our very essence." Vega's synthetic features softened, her voice steady. "Then we fight not just to survive, but to claim a future worthy of those who suffered before us." Together, they commanded the counter-offensive, marshalling both human will and artificial precision. As the pavilion stabilized, a new understanding took root, a commitment forged in fire that this reckoning was but the beginning. Outside, the night cloaked the city, but the battle for its soul raged on, with Talia and Vega leading the charge into uncertain dawns. The echoes of the battle still reverberated through Pavilion Zero. The flickering lights and residual hum of the compromised network were stark reminders of the fragile line they all walked. Talia Reyes stood at the center of the chamber, her scar hidden beneath the folds of her jacket, but its weight unmistakable. Around her, the delegates who had once been divided now found a tentative unity, forged in the fires of shared adversity. The threat of Nayas had forced them to confront not only their enemies, but also their own fears and doubts. Vega stepped forward, her synthetic eyes reflecting the dimmed lights, serene yet resolute. "We have faced the darkness," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But the true challenge lies ahead. Helix is more than a system. It is a living network of hopes, memories, and responsibilities. We must nurture it carefully, lest it become what we fought so hard to overcome." Talia nodded, addressing the assembly with a calm authority. "The path ahead is uncharted. We must guard against old mistakes, centralized control, secrecy, and blind obedience. Our strength lies in transparency, accountability, and the courage to question." A murmur of agreement spread through the chamber. The council began drafting the new charter, a framework balancing autonomy with collaboration, freedom with order. It was imperfect but necessary. Outside Pavilion Zero, the world was watching. News of the conflict, of Override's fall and Helix's birth, had ignited debates in governments, academies, and homes alike. The scars of the past served as warnings and lessons, fueling a global reckoning with power, trust, and technology. Talia and Vega remained at the heart of this evolving story, not as rulers but as guardians and guides. Their scars, both visible and invisible, were testaments to sacrifice and resilience. As dawn broke over the city, a new signal pulsed quietly through Helix's network, a beacon of hope and caution. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. And for the first time in a long time, they held the key. The story of Talia Reyes is not just a tale of a lone operative fighting in the shadows of a broken system. It is the story of countless voices silenced by fear, erased by power, and ignored by those who feared the truth. It is a reflection of a world struggling to reconcile the promises of progress with the costs of control. For decades, Override ruled the unseen networks, a cage forged in secrecy held together by codes written in blood and scars. It was designed to protect but became a tool of oppression. When Talia's scarred back revealed the key to its undoing, she ignited a chain reaction that exposed the lies buried deep beneath the surface. But Override was only the beginning. From its ashes rose Helix, a new hope, a new threat, and a new question. What does freedom mean when control is woven into the very fabric of existence? Can a system built on trust and transparency avoid the traps of the past, or will it become yet another leash disguised as liberation? Talia and Vega stand at the center of this storm, two sides of a coin forged in conflict and bound by a shared history. Their scars tell stories of survival, sacrifice, and the eternal struggle between light and shadow. They remind us that the fight for freedom is never over, it only evolves. As Helix grows, so too do the challenges. Old enemies lurk in forgotten corners, new factions emerge, each with their own vision of order and chaos. The line between protector and oppressor blurs, and the future becomes a battlefield not just of technology, but of ideals. This story is a call to vigilance, a reminder that the price of silence is often too high to bear. The choices we make today will echo in the lives of those who come after us. That freedom is not a destination but a journey, walked step by those brave enough to carry the scars and speak the truths. And that journey is not theirs alone, it is ours. What do we choose when faced with the power to control or the courage to free? What stories remain untold in the shadows, waiting for their voices to rise? How do we hold ourselves accountable in a world where technology can both bind and liberate? These questions are not just for the heroes of this tale, they are for everyone else. We invite you to join this conversation, to share your thoughts, your fears, and your hopes. Tell us where you are watching from and what freedom means to you in a world where the line between control and chaos is razor thin. Subscribe to Veteran Biker for more stories that reveal the unseen battles, the hidden scars, and the silent voices that shape our world. Like, comment, and share, because every story matters and every voice deserves to be heard. Thank you for being part of this journey. Together, we can write the next chapter, one story, one truth, one voice at a time.